All righty. For those of you joining us on Zoom, hello. You will not be able to see me very much during this, but hopefully you'll be able to hear us and we can ask our questions. Okay, so I'll get started. If you come and chatted to me in the office, you've probably heard my little spiel about what we're doing. But I'll just sort of go through the general overview, and then I've just got basically just a bunch of photos to show you what everything looks like. So the plan this summer is to take a bunch of students from USask over to the Museo Egizio in Turin, Italy. It's one of the largest Egyptian-based museums in the world, particularly looking at Egyptian antiquities. It's the largest outside of Cairo, basically. It's sort of where Egyptologists go when we want to look at things to get really good access. The museum is a research museum, so they're very open to people researching objects and working with collections and to education, which really works out for us. So while we're there, there's sort of two streams of courses that we're going to be looking at. One is Egyptian material culture. So we'll be working with some of the objects to learn about them, going through some lectures on Egyptian history combined with tours through the different galleries. At the moment, all the galleries are chronologically based, but they are currently redesigning the entire museum. And I'm not sure what that will look like. So we'll still do the same sort of lecture system, and then we'll probably have to go through a couple of rooms instead of just one. I think they're going to go for more of a contextualized anthropological approach, which is a really interesting twist for an Egyptian museum. So we'll see what their new outlook will look like. But I'm hoping that some of the rooms actually won't be done while we're there, so that we can go in while they're working on them and see their process. Because the other side of the course is on museology. So looking at some of the decisions that were made in the museum, how people put on exhibits, what types of questions and things they're trying to come up with, and stories they're trying to tell to their audience. A lot of that is also about the ethics of museums. So for this museum in particular, it's colonial history, how it got there, how they're trying to connect with different communities in order sort of to make up the fact that there's no way these objects can be given back to Egypt anymore, for a number of reasons, largely because Egypt doesn't have anywhere to put them. But Museo Egizio has a really good working relationship with the Cairo Museum, and they often sort of do curator exchanges and things like that. So it's another reason why we want to work with them, because they're very good ethically. And the Christian Greco, who's the director of the museum, every year it seems, or at least every Italian election, they like to put him under fire for all of the community outreach he does, because this is still a very conservative country. But Turin itself is extremely liberal, really forward-thinking in terms of community networks, and they actually just named Christian Greco the Turin Man of the Year because of what he's been doing for the community. So it's a pretty awesome man to work with. He'll give us a talk about what it's like to be a director of this museum. And a lot of the museology classes will be taught by the different staff of the museum. A large point of going there is to try and introduce students to different career paths and options, rather than just academic. So we'll hear from the director, we'll hear from the director of marketing and finance, from the education outreach, from the curators, from the registrars who look after the objects, and they often don't have a specific archaeology backgrounds. Often they're coming from different areas of history and things like that. We work with a photographer, conservators, and then some people who's, one guy whose job is just, he's an engineer and he just looks after moving the objects because some of them weigh several tons. So figuring out where you can put them in museums is a little bit of a challenge. So they'll talk to us all about that. From the museology side, we also visit 8 other museums in Turin. Turin redesigned itself after closing the Fiat and Ferrari factories that moved elsewhere in Italy that used to be their bread and butter. And so after those closed, they became the cultural capital of northern Italy, and which means that basically every other building is a museum, which is fantastic for our purposes. So we like to spread out the types of museums we go to. There are a couple of other history archaeology style museums we go to. One, which is doing a very good job, but has different decisions than the Museo Egizio, which is nice to see. One that we use as our don't do this example. And that's, they've got amazing objects, which are well kept, but their information panels are novels. And so that involves a little mini activity on redesigning the labels to make them accessible for different audiences and things like that. Then we go to some more of the sort of popular style museums. There's a really large film museum, automobile museum. We may or may not go to, it's a little bit of a hike. The Lavazza Museum, which is one of my favorites. If you don't know what Lavazza is, it's basically like Italian espresso sort of thing, even though espresso is very anyway. And that museum is all about Lavazza is amazing, and don't you want to work for Lavazza? And afterwards, everybody goes to the gift shop and buys Lavazza stuff, and then after we have a discussion, it's like, oh yeah, marketing hurts. They also give you free like coffee treats and things, which are good. And so it's all of these different decisions, and a lot of the more popular ones actually have a lot of more interactive displays. And so there's even, even though we might not aim to work in more of a popular or marketing style museum, a lot of their approaches are really about engaging people, because that's their whole point. And so visiting all these different museums might give you some ideas on different things you would want to see in a museum yourself. Then back in the museum, of course, going back to the Egyptology side, as I say, we'll go through the different phases of Egyptian history and we'll look at the different objects. I'll give you a very brief crash course in how to translate hieroglyphs. It's largely this offering formula, and then we'll go around trying to identify it on different objects. It's always a fun activity. We'll also have a couple of handling sessions. These are based on 4 materials in particular: wood, textiles, ceramics, and metals. And this year we'll probably also do faience. There's a faience specialist working there this year who is very excited about the prospect of telling people about faience. And so for those courses, you'll be able to handle the objects, and you'll get a lecture first on what we're looking for in these different materials, and then you'll do it yourself. So these are based on the type of information that you'd need to record for these objects if you were going to either put them into a museum database or to publish them. It's sort of the basic information that experts will expect you to record. All through this, you'll be working on your term project, which is a digital exhibit. We'll use Google Sites to make a website with different pages. And some of those pages need to be about the cultural history of an object or selection of objects in the museum. And then the other section will be on redesigning an exhibit in the museum space. And depending on whether you're coming for Egyptology or for museology, you can emphasize one or the other stream. So everybody will have all those sections, but depending on what your focus is, one can be longer than the other. And those, since now it's a real course and not run through an independent study, we can give you, you'll do a presentation about your project at the very end while we're in Italy, and then you'll have another week or two to finish the clean it up and then send in the final project. So that's largely what we're going to be doing. Let me show you. Let me just double check too. There's nobody in the waiting room. No, we're okay. So I just have some photos. Come on. Of some of the things that, did I skip one? No. So here we are, we do some experimental work. So this is a collection of Egyptian style beads. And so we're making some faience bead bracelets. This is more of our sort of, we have a couple of just fun activities because it is a bit intense. So we like to break it up a little bit. This is one of the curators. He's giving us a talk about fakes and forgeries, going through, and he brings in some legitimate objects and some, I shouldn't say legitimate, authentic objects and some inauthentic objects to look at how we deal with these in the museum world. Then we have a student working with some pottery, so you'll learn how to draw pottery on one day, and the background of pottery, different types of pottery that you'd expect to find in Egypt. And then we'll give you a couple of examples. If there are specific periods in Egypt that you're particularly, if you have a background in Egyptology, we can adjust our object requests if there's certain things that people want to be working with. So we've already had a couple of requests for pre-dynastic pottery, and they've got a massive pottery collection. So we can basically pick whatever we want. This is working with the museum photographer, and he's set up a whole photography lab for us last year. And this is, he's showing us how to do visibly induced luminescence, which is a method for making the pigment Egyptian blue show up as white in photographs. Sometimes Egyptian blue is faded too much, so you can't see that it's present. And so you take this photograph and it shows you where it was in the ancient object, which is, it's a pretty cool technique. That was fun. There's me looking at wood. That's what I do. So that was really fun. And here they brought us, that's an Old Kingdom headrest and a New Kingdom shabti that we're looking at over there. I bring a couple of different types of microscopes to work with. That one's a USB microscope, and we're just trying to see what we can see in terms of wood anatomy on this one. Over here, students are looking at, that's a Coptic textile. So you'll learn about how to identify the difference in thread and spin count, so warp or weft, how to count threads, the types of pigments and descriptions that you would use in a scientific way, standardized way to look at it. Here's another textile and some other, this one was a posed for looking at ceramics, but oh, and then I just put one of my favorite objects that they bring us usually when we're looking at metals is this Roman situla. It's about this big, and it's got some really incredible bronze work with the bark of the night and day dragged by baboons and jackals on one side, and the gods and Osiris on it. And it's just I really love it. So I put it up there. The museum itself also has some really state-of-the-art displays. So this is actually a full-size 3D printed coffin. And they've done this so that they can just print it completely white. And then they have projected the history of the coffin onto the coffin. So this is the projected decoration as you see it. And then they've done a lot of research on this in terms of pigments and CT scans and things like that. So they're able to also project the construction lines and things on the coffin, taking away the paint so you can actually see all the different layers. So this is some of the groundbreaking work that they've been doing, and trying to find different ways to incorporate technology to help people understand objects more, not just making things flashy, but actually trying to explore the objects. This is Turin from one of the mountaintops. We visit this, it's both a church, but it's also the tombs of the Turin kings. from the period when there were kings, and so we visit that, and it's also a nice photo op to look back at the city. This was unfortunately a little bit of a cloudy day, but get an idea. These are some of the different museums, or I guess it's more cultural history space. This is one of the old palaces, and this is their war room. So all the weaponry from the different phases of Italian history are displayed there. And there's, of course, grand palace galleries and whatnot. That's in the Lavazza Museum. And they've got a bunch of very interactive displays, which are kind of fun. You carry around this little coffee cup, and it causes the displays to interact with you, and then you can like pick up these digital postcards as you go through, and at the end you can look through all your postcards. It's really fun, but I don't know how much it helps you learn about the objects, but it's just fun and engaging. We also take a day to go out to one of the archaeological sites close by. This is the site called Industria, and it's actually a Egyptian temple to Isis and Serapis, but from the Roman period. So it sort of blends nicely with the themes that we're looking at. And these we're touching some of the Roman bricks, and at that period, particularly during the Augustan age, that's largely where the states do. They started, after they finished the bricks, the brick makers shove their hand in them, and it's so that they're easy to move, but it's really cool because it has the shape of the hand in it, so you can sort of, I like to say, hold hands at this stage. So that's what we're doing there. And I've got some friends who are running the excavation this summer, so we should be able to get a little bit more access to the site than we usually do. And this is just the city itself. There's a very funny historic period sort of soap opera show that is filmed in Turin. And this was, you can see there's like some horses and carriages and things. This is from the window of the museum looking out into the main square beside us. And this is our street, and you can see there's obelisks in different squares and things throughout the city. Turin's incredible, and if you're thinking about coming, you should definitely look up Turin, and it's on the Po. It's gorgeous. Wear flats. The Italians wear stilettos. I don't know how they do it. Everything is cobbled, and you can just watch them, and they go over the like rain gates and somehow know that it's insane. But I wear flats. And then the food, which is incredible. I just picked 3 less offensive looking. They're very big on meat, very meat forward. They do have a couple of vegan places, and you can get vegetarian, no problem. Non-dairy, non-gluten is doable, but you have to let people know in advance and make sure that they understand what that means. But it's a modern city, you can find everything you want. But we also spend a lot of time going to markets, and I'll take you to the market is only closed on Sundays. So it's not a Sunday market, it's an every other day market. And there's some that are a little bit scary, and that they're massive and everybody goes there, and you sort of have to snack to get people's attention and whatnot. I'll take you there for a moment, and then I'll take you to the smaller one, which is more for tourists, but it's much less scary. And in the housing rooms, you'll all have mini fridges and things, so you can keep things in there. And that's basically all that I wanted to show you, give you our little spiel. So now I just wanted to open it up and ask if you had any questions.
I know some study abroad courses have, like, you do some classes here in Saskatoon before you go. Is there a class where time of the week you do class in Saskatoon before you go?
Not physically. We're going to record and post some introductory lectures, some more based on a really basic overview of Egyptian history and things like that. So if you've taken Egyptian history or archaeology courses, you can just sort of, skim through it. If you have no background in Egyptian history, I recommend that you watch them. But they'll be recorded and posted, so you can watch them in your leisure, wherever you are. It's gonna be really hot. It's gonna be really hot.
Northern Italy, but it's the whole Italy.
Yeah, it doesn't get as bad as Rome. But we are also in a valley here, so it gets a little swampy, let's say. I would say it doesn't get worse than here on the hot days here. There was 1 year when it got up to 42 for one day, and that was rough. Usually it's sort of mid to high 30s in the time we're there, somewhere between high 20s and high 30s most days. You do have air conditioning in the housing, and the museum is air conditioned. But I will say it is Italian air conditioning. They hate air conditioning. They hate it. And so most places won't have air conditioning. So they'll usually have fans and things like that. But I will give you a tip that if you are coming and you're in the rooms and it feels too hot, the air conditioning in the rooms has, like, they set it. It looks like you can change it, but you can't. So if you want it cool, you have to go down to the front desk and ask them to change it. So it gets cool enough to handle, but it will be sweaty.
You can always pick out the tourists in Italy because they're the only ones with shorts and tank tops.
Yeah.
Usually.
Yeah.
Even if it's 35.
Exactly. No, most of them, especially the men, they're still wearing their wool suits in the heat of summer. And we've had like museum meetings with the museum staff, or we're like meeting at a restaurant and we're sitting inside underneath the air conditioner. They come in and they're like, no, outside. I can't be in the same room with an air conditioner. We'll get sick. They all think that air conditioning makes you sick. So it's not even that they have it, they just won't turn it on. So you'll have it in the museum, you'll have it in your rooms, but yeah, walking around and in some of the restaurants, it'll be warm.
I'm sitting here trying to find flights for myself. Like, how can I make this? Yes, you're part of it.
Is there vaccines? I mean, I kind of looked, but I wasn't sure.
At the moment, no. We'll keep an eye on it, but usually, as long as you have your basic vaccines, but there's no, like, you need to have it in the last 3 months or something like that.
I think they lessened the restrictions. When I was in there, when I went there a year and a half ago, you had to still prove your COVID vaccine, but I don't think they got it.
Yeah, last summer we didn't get
No.
any formal requests, but we do recommend that you carry proof of it in case, because there might be like an establishment that you want to go to and they'll ask you, but we didn't run into any issues last time. But we'll check again, because you never know these days.
I think the students that went in June to Rome didn't have an issue.
Okay.
Not that was an issue, they didn't experience anything.
Here's another question, just like in terms of potentially going either earlier before, like if you wanted to do like around. Or
After.
Yeah. Definitely after.
Yeah.
Last year we had someone go almost 3 weeks earlier and then didn't participate in the class because of cost, which was very expensive for him. He already paid for it. But didn't get anything back. And he was like, but yeah. Definitely.
And if you do get COVID, you will have to, we follow the same rules here, so you'll have to quarantine you for 5 days before you can join us, so best to not travel beforehand and risk missing out on the first week. Well, and also just if you are planning on traveling, just make sure you look at the visa restrictions. And then unless you're going for more than 3 months, you're probably fine, but.
I would be able to afford that.
Day or two, just to kind of get climatized a bit.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's not like
2 or 3. And the chances of our everyone coming from Saskatoon to go to Turin are pretty high, that you'll be on the same flight, people at the same time, like, you have to be there on that day. If you're not really experienced traveler, that's actually a good thing. The one time it's a good thing, we fly out of Saskatoon, because it takes forever.
And if we do go a couple days early, we'd have to find somewhere else to stay in.
Yeah, that's all.
Yeah, you can contact the housing, because they do, they're basically, they're sort of student housing, but in Italy, student housing works differently. Most universities don't have their own housing, most housing is independent. And so it's much nicer than what we're used to. So it's sort of like I would say a equivalent of like a 3-star hotel here, kind of thing, except you'll have a roommate. So you'll have like a mini fridge, and I should mention, because we had to change the dates and go in August, things do tend to shut down a little bit. So I should say, if you are planning on traveling during the weekends and things like that, try to plan those trips for the July leg, not the August leg. Because people just go to the beach in August. So you'll just see like places with like signs on the doors. And don't trust Google. Don't trust Google. Come and ask me if things will be open, or call the restaurant. Most people will speak English or enough to get by. Everybody in your housing, 24-hour English speaking reception, and the working language of the museum is in English as well. What was it?
Oh, we're talking about housing, that we could
Oh,
call and
yes.
ask ahead of time.
Right, so, the breakfast is included for the first half, and then the kitchen staff is going on holiday at housing. This is how Italy works. But there'll still be lots of cafes and things, and food is not expensive in Turin. A lot of people ask me how to budget for food and things like that, because we'll take you out for lunches on Tuesday, Thursday, which is already included in the budget, and dinners on Wednesday. And as I said, breakfast is included for the first couple of weeks, and then not at the end, and then otherwise you're on your own. But I would say that you're probably not going to be spending more generally there than you would here, kind of thing. It depends what you're eating, of course, but like going out for a pizza is usually like €8 for eating at the sort of simpler places, and you can get really good sort of focaccia. It's like pizza, but they use focaccia as the crust basically there. And that's like €2, so it's cheap. And then you'll have your fridge and things like that. Yeah, I think that's, and yeah, the shoes, nobody wears sweatpants. I will warn you now, if you want to look like a tourist, that's fine. Like, it's up to you what you want to do. And we'll go through some of the cultural things, and you can, again, you do you, but we'll let you know what is the norm, and if you decide that you don't care, then you don't care. But their sweatpants is for working out. You take them to the gym, you wear them at the gym, and you wear your, leather pants on the way home. I don't know how they do, they don't sweat, they just, especially the women, the men. But the women like walk around and they're like, as I say, leather pants and like 40-degree heat, and they're like, oh, it's a little hot. But,
And then you wonder how they get those other pants off.
it's incredible. And we are close to Milan. And I will say, when you're booking flights, it will be considerably cheaper usually to fly into Milan, but then it is about a 2-hour train ride into town. So just put that in your head. The trains are cheap though too. And there's a very nice coach bus system that leaves both from Milan and the Turin airport. And that's usually what I take. I think it's like €20 from Milan and like 10, I think, from Turin. I can't remember. But yeah, from Milan, I think it's about 2 hours on the bus. And so it actually will be longer on the train too, because you'll have to first train into Milan train station and then train from there to Turin. So I would recommend taking the bus. It's just easier. And they're like nice air-conditioned coach buses, not like city buses. Any other questions?
What is it like for using currency? Like, do they very like cash more so, or are they leaning now towards using cards for a lot of it?
Most, and last year was the first time I went where most places preferred cards. There are still some places that will only take cash, and if you try to pay for your morning coffee with a card, they'll sort of, well, no, they're used to tourists by now, but they prefer coins. And it's euros. So I have a bit of cash, but I wouldn't take out thousands. I usually take like 100 euros in cash with me for like emergencies, and then while I'm there, I take out more from ATMs and things like that, but last year, I think I only took out 500, and I had other like course-related expenses to pay from that, and I still didn't use all the cash, so it's pretty exceptional.
You might need the euro, you have to use a public bathroom.
That's what I was gonna say,
Yeah.
do they charge for bathrooms there? I know they said in Rome, that's.
It depends. I think the only one that came up for me was the train station, was the one where we had to have coins, but in the city.
But good to have it, because you don't wanna not be able to use the bathroom, you don't have to go.
Sometimes you also might want to have like a package of tissues with you, because sometimes there's toilet paper. But, northern Italy tends to be, it's not as touristy as Rome or southern Italy, where they get a lot more tourists. They're starting to get more tourists in Turin. Last year I noticed that it was much more touristy. I think still the like waves of people coming out from after post-COVID kind of thing. But usually it's not as bad. The city itself is very modern too. I mean, I put sort of old-fashioned pictures, but we're around the corner from an Apple store, and there is a Starbucks nearby.
Really?
Yeah, very controversial. That's one of those things, like,
Fine,
it's like you can go there,
but don't show anyone.
but yeah, maybe finish your drink there. They're very much, they don't do the like walkabout coffees in Italy, in Europe in general. You're supposed to go to the bar, you order your espresso, you finish it, and then you leave. There is a sort of American coffee shop nearby the museum, and then there's a Starbucks a couple blocks away when you get, and people will get homesick, and sometimes it's just, I just want my mocha that I walk around with, and then it's okay, but. Yeah,
I did that. I needed my McDonald's french fries.
exactly,
Some comfort food.
exactly.
And there's
Yeah.
one on every corner, so.
Yeah, there's McDonald's in town. Yeah, I do that when I go to Egypt.
Yeah.
With my regular. I think I got a white chocolate iced mocha when I got back to Cairo for a day 1 year.
Does anyone have any questions for me, or the application process, funding? I know I talked to a couple of you already. I'd also say that as part of the pre-departure process out of my office, we will ensure with Dr. Arbuckle that you have everything you need to be prepared to go. So I don't know if is there people in line? Can you hear me? So we're gonna go through all many things, but you'll have access to mental health supports and how to deal with that while you're away, pre, during, and post. We will also have a what to expect sort of thing. That's when you're gonna talk more detail about what to bring, what to expect, what the culture is like. Because you're going to a country that isn't, but I do still speak English, but because it isn't English, we are going to find someone to provide you with some basic conversational Italian. And that's part of that grant that we have. And then once you're accepted and you've put your deposit saying, hold my spot, I'm going, then I'll give you a very detailed what timelines to expect from there. We'll go through a safety talk pre-departure with Dr. Bassi out of the International Student Study Abroad Office. So you don't need to remember all of this now. It will be, I will, in your letter of acceptance, if you were to print it, it'll be like 9 pages. It's
Right.
very, very detailed, but there's no way for me to do it any other way right now. It is incredibly important that you have all that information at your fingertips. There'll be links on how to pay, there'll be links on, wellness supports, there'll be links on, blah, blah, blah. I thought all in one was better than 19 different emails that everyone has. And that's just the way my office was for now. But everyone accepted, aside from what my office provides, everyone accepted receives the university's global engagement scholarship. And you'll have to, we will sign you up for the international travel registry. You must complete that to even go. So if you don't do that, even if you paid everything, you're not going. And that's not a me thing, that is a university level, it's not even a college level. You have to complete that. It's very basic questions plus the online Canvas pre-departure cartoon that they they're revamping it now. Like, oh my, can you send me the link so I see what the students are looking at? Like, oh my god. Little cartoon coming across the street, but I know it's not that bad. But it really, after that, you upload your itinerary, you upload your emergency contacts. It'll ask you for your foreign address or foreign contact information. You're gonna put the place you're staying at, or even the museum's address and Dr. Arthur's name and phone number. We'll go over the safety plan with you. There's a lot of boxes that we check off, but they're all very, very important. But we will ensure that you have everything you possibly can be prepared for.
Yeah, we'll make sure that anybody who's coming, we'll have a little additional orientation to like icebreaker here so that people can get to know each other and ideally find travel buddies that you can get there with, which would be nice. Maybe linking you up with people who have traveled outside of Canada before if nobody has. I will also say that like usually everything's fine, but I don't know if it's in the forms, but to get cancellation insurance on flights would be.
It is, but no one listens to me.
Okay, get cancellation insurance on flights. Usually it's not that much more expensive if it's just a cancellation, but relatively speaking, it's like an extra $100. But if there's something, and in the last couple of years, we all know that there are things that we cannot anticipate, and try to get your money back from Air Canada if you don't have that cancellation insurance. It took me 2 years to get the flights that I booked for Turin the year we had to cancel because of COVID, to get my money back from Air Canada. Whereas if I had cancellation insurance, it would have been immediate. So, well, not immediate, I think it still takes 60 days. But
It's better than 2 years.
exactly, so definitely get flight cancellation insurance, just in case something happens. I did have a student send me questions by email, some of these are good. So, do we need any form of visa to get into do the course in Italy? As a Canadian, if you're Canadian passport, then no, you should be going on, I think it's called the Schengen visa, which gives you 90 days in Europe. But it's the kind of thing where you have to do 90 days, I think, within 180-day period. So you can't go there for like 70 days and then come back for a week and then go for another 70 days or something like that. So just be aware of those types of restrictions, but generally speaking, it should be fine. When should we apply for funding? As soon as the applications come out or after we've been accepted to the program?
No.
Now? There you go.
I was gonna say too. It just makes never been accepted yet.
Even if you haven't been accepted, because I'm the one who reviews them, it goes through my office. And then I'll know if you've been accepted. I'm the one sending out the form. Okay, so yeah, do it now and you won't forget.
And it's really easy because it, like, once you create one, it like,
Yeah.
it just
You only
stacks
do
up.
one for like all of them.
And then you can just change the name or whatever. Yeah, it's really easy.
Can we still apply for funding through arts and science if we were in other colleges like agriculture? No.
You can try.
Art, and they should go, I'm assuming, talk to those colleges because,
They'll still get that global engagement one though.
okay,
The $1,000 one from Isaac.
okay.
That's a university one.
And how does one apply for funding?
Through pause.
Through PAWS. How much money should we bring to Italy if we are accepted into the program?
How much money you want to spend?
That's really difficult. It depends on your spending habits. Again, I would say in general, as much as you spend here, you should expect to spend there, considering the fact that you'll probably be eating out a bit more, but eating out there is cheaper than here. But otherwise, it depends. You could eat focaccia every day and spend like €4 a day on food, or you could go and have a bottle of Barolo and a steak and spend a considerable amount. There's excellent shopping. I buy all of my non-winter wardrobe over in Turin. Linen pants especially are gorgeous. And like tailors there, you can get tailors to make you suits for, I mean, they're not dirt cheap, but they're cheap, way cheaper than here, so. Maybe budget a little bit for that too. Do we need travel insurance? Yes.
You have to prove your travel insurance when you do the travel registry.
There's travel insurance through the University of
Yes.
Saskatchewan.
How about if we have our own private plans? Like I'm with Blue Cross, can I just get it?
You just have to show what you plan number.
Okay,
Yeah, so when I was in school, I was in Blue Cross, and you can print out their international travel card.
I'll just have to call them and up mine. Because I don't think I have it now, but I may as well just go through them because I already have my policies.
And USask as a student, that's another reason why we create these courses, so you're registered, you know, so you have all those benefits from that too. But you can get additional insurance through USSU, whatever it is.
Okay, I guess I'll have to look and see which one's better deal.
And I always get, you probably do too, I always get the question about what should we bring, and everyone's like, I'm budgeting, I'm not gonna spend anything when I get there. Every student buys stuff.
Of course.
Every time, if they're not bringing, buying another bag, I recommend getting one of those foldable ones to put in your bag. And I came home with lots of expendable ones that I checked.
Oh, yeah. There's also a monthly giant antiques fair, and I usually go and get something for the wall. But you can buy like the vintage Italian, like, posters and ads for different things, which are gorgeous. I bought a bunch for my house. I love them. And there's artists there who are so underappreciated, but you can buy, like, I bought some mounted printed photographs from this one photographer who is incredibly talented, and they're mounted, like, already ready for the wall, and they were €15 each.
Wow.
Which is, like, just the mounts would cost more than that here, so things like that where you don't realize that you needed it. There's a lot of stuff, so I would bring some spending money, definitely. And again, it's gonna be hot, so do not pack. Like, you can, like, what we're wearing now, I guess would be fine. If, I don't know why you'd get chilly, like.
And it has like how, maybe you kind of touched on it, like how cold is the museum? Like, do I really need to think about putting much of a sweater to be in there?
Maybe like a cardigan, like that's, like, maybe that's.
And I'm definitely not someone who gets cold often. Like,
Yeah.
if mine's 50, I put on a sweater, like.
And we can, and shorts are okay, right? We can wear shorts?
Shorts are okay. I would wear sort of nicer shorts, like not those like Reebok ones that I might wear to jeans. Yeah, cut off jeans. Just remember, like, you might want to work with the people in the museum. So whatever you show them is what they'll remember you. So if you contact them down the line for an internship and they remember that you were the one who was wearing booty shorts and cutoffs the whole time, they will be, no. They're Italian, they're more traditional than we are. But like, this would be something I would wear, well, if it wasn't 40 degrees. But this type of, I usually wear like linen pants and a nicer shirt and a tucked in, do the French cut kind of situation.
I'll have to do some research on like Italian dress, because I don't know.
It's fine to wear exactly what you would wear here, but like, if you were going to like dinner with your parents kind of thing, and like a not nice, but like, you know, restaurant where.
Skirts or something, maybe would be a good option.
Skirts would be fine, as long as you're comfortable with heat and skirts. I'm more of a linen pants person.
I don't even know where to buy one in here though.
Well, yeah.
Old Navy.
Okay.
But that's the kind of thing where like bring one pair and then buy 4 when they're there.
Well, there you go, because it'll be cheaper there than.
It's so cheap.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because linen here is quite expensive.
Yeah, there's United Colors of Benetton, which is, it's actually British. But they have an amazing linen collection in the summer, and by the time we get there, it's the off season, so there's usually sales of like 50 to 60% over there too. And in fact, when we're going, now that we've adjusted the date, we'll be there just in the start of the sales.
Okay.
So usually we have to wait a couple weeks for the sales, but now.
Okay, so
Or sales.
pack light and then just buy your wardrobe when you're there.
Yeah.
When we just got back from a trip that we've done a few times, my husband and I, and we have a travel list that we share on the phone. And the very first line in all caps was, do not buy extra clothes before you go. And we bought extra clothes before we went, and then we had to buy another suitcase, because we know we're going to buy stuff.
Yeah,
We
exactly.
ignored our own number one rule.
Yeah, definitely, if you're worried about being too informal, just wait and buy before. We've got a couple days before we're in the museum, just wait and go shopping there.
And this might be a weird question, but do they have lots of sizes? Cause like,
Yeah.
Okay, cause some places you'll go, like I was in Victoria and I tried to shop and there was nothing for like curvy people the whole time. Or no, it was Montreal and like nothing.
Yeah.
If you really had.
No, the big stores have a fantastic range of sizes. I will say the little boutiques, there's like a lot of boutiques that make these one size fits all clothes. Those, I don't know.
I took those, thank you. I was certainly not the right size.
I have a friend who's a size 6 and she couldn't fit into them, and she looks even smaller than a size 6, and I was just like outrageous.
That's a good question, because in China,
Well, that's exactly.
I am not, their extra large was what we would have said it was, pretty small.
Yeah, I was in Japan and places like that were similar that way too, just not. So so I don't wanna think I'm gonna go buy clothes there, get there and realize that
Super disappointed.
they're not made for bigger
Yeah.
women.
No, so it's only the boutiques, which tend to be too
Right.
expensive anyway.
France
they're-
is hard like that too sometimes, isn't it? When I was a really little kid and we went to France and my mom was like, there's no clothes here that fit me. There's just nothing. So,
I've also been told, you're too big.
yeah.
They are, I will tell you, they don't mean to be mean,
No.
but they're brutally honest there. So I usually walk into a store, if it looks really fancy and I'm uncertain if they'll have my size, I'll be like, do you have clothes that will fit me? And they're like, no, you're too fat. And I'm like, thank you very much. It's not an insult there, because it's like, it's just, no, you won't fit our clothes.
And then why waste their time and why waste your time?
Yeah, exactly. So and you'll get kind of things like that all the time. Like if you're picky, waiters will comment on it. Like if you like move tomatoes to the side of your plate, something like, you don't like tomatoes? You don't like good food? Ah, American. Like that kind of thing, you'll get a lot. And it's not, they don't consider it rude. They're just a very honest, direct culture. Takes a little bit of getting used to.
Does anyone here have American family? Do you?
A little bit.
Okay,
I
those
will
years.
say, please, I'm working now, but my uncle is from here. and
Oh.
he's American.
Oh,
His
okay.
wife is American, but.
Do put something that says Canada or a flag or something on your stuff. 'Cause they do treat us differently.
Yeah.
As soon as they find out you speak English, the first thing they do is American, and they will treat you differently. Like, no, Canadian. Oh, okay.
Yeah, if you can drop in just like casual, like, oh, but we don't have this back in Canada or something like that, then they'll be like, oh.
I know it sounds
Okay.
bad, but it's there.
We did that in France too. My mom bought a Canada flag patch that she wore in her bag, and the second people saw it, they were so much nicer to us.
Yeah, the dollar store, actually, this is a really good time of year for this travel. Because the dollar store right before Canada Day has tons of stuff.
Mhm.
Like buttons and pins, and I always take stuff like that when I go abroad anywhere, so that I can trade with other people, or when I'm going to the stores, like those boutiques, I'm like, oh, here's a loom here, here's a Canada flag or something, especially to see kids, and you'll have to see kids at the museum, but I always do that anyway.
Yeah.
It's fun. Trading.
It's fairly easy to get around.
Yeah. Yeah, so I should actually mention that. So anything that is required for day trips and things to museums is covered in the budget, but your general transit is not. And that's because they've changed their system. So if you want a transit pass, you have to go to the transit office with your passport. So we can't book it for you. And there are different prices depending on your age. So if you're 25 or under, it's almost nothing. It's like, I think 20 euros, 25 euros for a transit pass for the whole time we're there. Oh, remember the time change. You might have to get 10-day passes instead of the full-time pass because their passes start on the 29th of the previous month and go to the 29th of the next month. And that is their monthly pass, and there's not a 30-day. So we're gonna have to do something else, but transit in general isn't that expensive. It's similar to here kind of thing. Some people walked. The housing is, I'd say it takes me 30 minutes to walk from the museum to housing. I am a slow walker. I tend to dawdle. Some people walked every morning. It's a nice walk across a river. Some people took they have those little scooter things there. Some people took scooters. One person roller skated. If you want to bring roller skates, I wouldn't recommend it, but you can. But the housing is directly on one of the bus routes that will get you the closest. If you're comfortable taking the bus, there's also a subway station that drops you up a little further away. So it's more like a 7 or 8 minute walk from there to the museum. But some people were too afraid to take the bus and they wanted to take the transit. Hopefully, it turns out usually closer to the end of July and in August, there's fewer transit strikes because people are on vacation, so it's inconvenient for them to strike. But there will almost certainly be a strike either on the trains or on the transit systems while we're there. It tends to be one a month.
They never sorted it out, it's just ongoing.
Yeah,
There's always a great.
Remind us that we always have power to do this, okay, but don't
Like,
just
keep
regret
going
it.
and
We
be-
could always, we could do this and we could reconsider it.
So that'll be a system where if it turns out that what happens, you just send me an email and let me know that you're walking and you'll be late. Not a panic. You just roll with the punches in different.
Shopping in like an area that has like shops and.
Yeah, I'd say it's a little bit more urban, in that they're more like sort of cheaper pizza and falafel and those kind of foods. But like a 10-minute walk away, you get into nicer restaurants and things like that. So.
And the
And then-
market is somewhat close by to that as well.
The market's closer to the museum, the big one, that's every day. But then there's the pop-up market. There's the yellow tent market, which is my favorite, and you've got a schedule where they're gonna be every day, but it moves around the city. And there's a couple of other ones that also move around.
Just because of my food allergies, I'm thinking that might be one of the pets.
One of those, well, I have celiac, and I was fine in Italy, well, Rome, so, well, I expensive in another place, but they even have a app for the celiacs in Italy of where to go, and when you get to a restaurant that is kind of serves that, they go over the top. Like, as soon as they say I am, they take everything off my side and put different colored plates and bowls and placemats, and everything is completely different. Feel like a princess. I don't get that anywhere else.
You're gluten-free, dairy-free, right? Did I remember? They do have gluten-free croissants in the cafes. That's what I noticed.
I'll just live on.
Depends, some of them.
Yeah.
But most of them.
Do they have like decent access to kind of similar medications and stuff?
Yeah.
Like, cause I'm technically dairy free, but I'm also one of them who just carries lactate on me constantly. So should I stock up or can I buy that there?
You can definitely buy that there, but I would bring it because the issue is hours.
Okay.
So if you get sick Monday to Friday, 10 to 4, you're fine. So if that's the sort of thing where I would bring the medications that you think you might need with you, knowing that if something happens, you can get it there. There too, though, do they have access to a video doctor or something?
Yeah, you have your 24 hours. 7 days a
Okay.
week.
Perfect, that'd be fantastic, because they're, usually if it's like a day-to-day thing, you go to a pharmacist and ask them about it, and they'll give you the prescription. If you want a doctor, you have to go to the hospital. There's no like clinic you can go to.
Is it pharmacia?
Yeah,
You'll see them because they're big green neon signs, not red. It's something different. But unlike here, if you go to the pharmacy, like Shoppers Drug Mart, you have basically a grocery store. There it's drugstore, and it's usually very, very small.
yeah, yeah.
Yes. But I would recommend if you have, I always bring pretty much a pharmacy with me, but we'll go through this later, but you don't wanna, you also wanna check what is allowable drug wise. There's a few ADHD medications in some countries is illegal in certain amounts. So bring what you need and just a little bit more. But if you have like 300 pills, that would be trafficking in China kind of thing. You would want to bring something that you were used to, because I went to get Benadryl in Barcelona and they had no idea what I was talking about because I couldn't remember the name of the actual drug. And then they had a wall of just that. They didn't have, Benadryl here and Gravol there. It was just what the chemical names were. And I don't remember that because I didn't need to go to one in Italy last time, but every other country I've been to in Europe is, you need Dramamine there.
Yeah,
You need Benadryl.
yeah, they have the similar brands to the UK. So if you know your UK equivalent, but why would you know?
Night nurse and day nurse is basically Dayquil and NyQuil. That I found out in the army. But yeah, if you have something your go-to, definitely, like for example, because I'm a mom, here's my little kit of all the pills. They're mostly vitamins, but still, that's kind of what I would bring. Yeah. That's only in there because I was just on a trip. Trust me. Still fall.
Any other questions?
Any more of them?
You can always just email me or, oh yeah, I'll check. Email me or Lavina.
Been to my office, doors open, often, we chatting.
Then if you have officially applied, I'll be getting in touch next week to set up a schedule for interviews. They'll be like 10 to 15 minutes, especially since I've already done this spiel for everybody. So I won't go through it again in the interview. It'll just be me asking you some questions about background and things. Mostly, well, some of it because we do have too many people, so there will be a selection process. But largely, it'll be to maybe adjust the course to make sure that everybody has a good background.
I have an interesting question, just because it's my own interest, which you know from our class, but I'm interested in plants. So do you think there's anything like that I'll be able to, like even the pottery and stuff? I don't know if there'll be anything.
The Museo Editio has one of the best ancient botanical collections because they have the contents of the tomb of Ka and Merit,
Okay.
which has the best preservation. We can't touch it, but it's on display, so you
Okay.
can go and see it.
Okay.
I can ask if they can bring us some of the ones from storage, but those, it'll depend on whether or not they've been assessed recently.
Okay.
Because anything they bring us has to have been assessed, and these materials get assessed regularly. Those ones, they really only take them out when researchers need them, so it'll depend on what they cost them. So that'd be fine. And yeah, in our interviews, you can think of it now, and in the interviews, you want to bring up any periods or object types that you're particularly interested in. I can't promise anything, but I can always put in a request. And if we can do it earlier, the better. All right, well, thanks for coming, and thanks for people online or those who are watching the recording. And again, if anything comes up, just email me. Bye.
Just noticed the giant basket of breadsticks in this photo.